Hit me one time. Yep. It's the Capital City Podcast. I'm your host, Capital J, alongside my main man,
DL Glass.
And we often talk North Carolina, well, hip-hop from a North Carolina perspective. And a while back, we had my man Jay Flex on. We were talking about why didn't North Carolina artists get on back in the day? And one of the things that I used to notice was the huge difference in engineering around here versus what I heard coming out of New York and especially Los Angeles. So I would say it was the king of great engineering. So today we're talking about engineering and how much of a difference it makes. So let's go back a little bit. Some of the first hip hop records that I had was, let's take Kurtis Blow, The Breaks. Let's take Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight. And let's take Grandmaster Flash, Super Rapping. I know some of you are like, what? Well, Grandmaster Flash, Super Rapping was not engineered as well as the Sugar Hill Gang. And I would argue that the Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight, was not engineered as well as The Breaks by Kurtis Blow. Now, Super Rapping was crazy independent. That was on an independent joint. Wasn't even on Sugar Hill Records, I don't think. I think, I forgot what record label it was, but it was a small record label that came out on. Sugar Hill was run by Sylvia Robinson. She's got mad experience in the game. She sang disco. But she's not a major label. But when you listen to the difference in Super Rapping versus Rapper's Delight, you hear better engineering, more experience. Kurtis Blow signed to Mercury Records, big time.
Okay.
And when you listen to The Breaks, the engineering on that engineering is excellent. It sounds awesome, Especially, you pop the needle on the wax back in the day, that you could tell that this sounds way more professional than any of the other joints that were coming out.
Right.
And over time, we've heard everything from horrible engineering to some of the top-notch, best engineering ever. So let's just talk about some of the things and some of the songs that represent each level of these engineering levels. That's the word I'm looking for. How about that?
Okay.
All right. I just gave you 3 back in the day, where you can hear the difference in those. And for the most part, as we got into the 80s, late 80s, you started with Cold Chillin' record label. The engineering was pretty good. And it became, that's the standard. Whatever's the best becomes the standard. And when you hear less, it stands out. And Cold Chillin' was putting out so much music that when you heard a lesser engineering, it could be great songs. There were a lot of good songs back in the day, but you could tell that the engineering just wasn't up to snuff. And you can especially tell when you play some of that old school music beside some of today's music. And a few songs that stand out in particular from the 80s that had poor engineering.
You gonna call them out?
Hey, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Cool C, Glamorous Life.
Oh, yeah. I like that track.
It was, dope song.
Yes. What year was that?
That was probably 88, maybe.
Really?
87.
Damn.
I can't remember. Somewhere between 86 and 86 and 88, I think. Maybe 89. Maybe as late as 89 or 90.
He was rapping, though.
Yeah, Cool C was dope. But, he got in trouble. He's in jail.
Yeah.
But that song was poorly engineered. Almost to the point where you can't hardly use it today.
Oh.
At a party, when everything else is going on, you drop that joint in its, its original form, not a remaster or anything. The bass was too loud. You know, like just stuff. Levels were off.
Glamorous life is the clearest
Right,
part.
right. You know, and they did. You know, they did what they could, and they put out a hit single, and it was a great song.
Right.
But it was poorly engineered.
Okay.
So they checked all the other boxes. You know, Coolsey did his rap right. The guy made the beat right.
Right.
The scratching was right. The background vocals, the dude going go, go, go. They were doing that thing, but the engineer dropped the ball. And then today, I think that hurts the legacy of the song.
Yeah, because of that.
Jungle Brothers' whole first album.
Oh, yeah.
They,
You got to turn it up and down.
it sounded that first album sounds like they did it in the bedroom. You know, almost sounds demo quality.
Right. Right.
And I think, and to me, that was probably their best album. But the engineering was poor. And it doesn't stand up. You can't even, you know, it's hard to throw it out there when you have NWA out here sounding like they were recorded in $1 million studio.
Right.
And they're talking gangster stuff. And they straight off the streets. But Dr. Dre has been in the game at this point he had already been in the game for 8-9 years.
Right.
Like, so you take an NWA record. Let's take the Niggas for Life album. That was, at the time, I thought that was one of the best engineered works I'd ever heard in hip hop. You know, it sounded great. It just sounded great.
California.
Right. But then Wu-Tang drops.
Oh, God. Dope album, but
Dope album.
it don't stand the test of time.
The engineering
Yes.
was bad. The beats were great. The rhymes were awesome.
Right.
Engineering was poor. So for those of you that aren't into music on that deep, engineering is stuff like, well, you know, first of all, you have a guy recording you. He's behind a big old board.
I'm glad you're giving this, because that's one thing I think we should touch. Like, what's the difference between an engineer and a producer?
Yeah, producer. Well, you know, a producer, for the most part, the producer makes the music. In the case of a guy like Puffy, he's the brainchild of the project, and you know, he may coordinate one person making music and put the right people together.
Right.
And he'll get producer credit when somebody else could have made the beat. But for the most part, the producer's responsible for the music, but the engineer is the person that makes everything sound good. When you see guys in the studio, that dude is on the other side of the glass, one guy's in the booth, and there's another guy sitting behind the board.
Yes.
He's usually engineering and mixing.
Yes.
And, you know, they kind of go hand in hand, even though you can have a mixer and an engineer can be separate.
Yeah.
For the most part, there will be some mixing and engineering, and mastering is the polish. You know, the final polish on what's been done. And the engineer is important. His ear has to be great. Bad Boy stuff was always engineered well. So your engineering is going to consist of stuff like the engineer is the guy that makes sure your vocals don't sound like you were recorded in a closet. The engineer is the guy that makes sure that the snare drum doesn't sound so loud that it hurts your ears. The engineer is the guy that makes sure the bass isn't distorted. The engineer is the guy that makes sure that you can hear the bass line over the horns.
Right.
And that they blend seamlessly. The engineer is the guy that, you know, if you have an orchestra playing behind on a part, the engineer is the guy that makes it sound like one piece instead of hearing every individual instrument standing out.
Right.
That's what an engineer is in there doing. And his job may be one of the most important jobs in music. Right. They don't get any credit, though.
And they don't make no money. Well, I ain't gonna say they don't make no money, but you know, when we talk about royalties and all this other stuff, they're not getting a piece of that.
Yeah, when I was younger, man, I used to give engineers hell because when I went to the studio, I always expected that if I go to the studio, it's not gonna sound like I recorded it at home.
I get it. Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm anal about getting my, if I'm going to spend money and go to the studio, I want my joint to sound like NWA when I'm done.
You want to engineer. You don't want somebody just to record.
I want it to be fully engineered, and I
Yes.
want it to sound like some money was spent.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, we couldn't get that sound right in North Carolina. There was one studio I think had the best engineering quality, and I think for me it was probably Funhouse in Greensboro.
Okay.
That was just that I've dealt with. I know there were others, but I thought they, that was about as close as I heard to
Are they still around?
other places. I don't know if Funhouse. I don't think they're open as a studio anymore. But they had so many other things going on. So I'm sure that some portion of the business still going on. Now there was a record store, label. They did remix services, and they had a studio. And the studio, it was top notch. What else could hurt your engineering? Okay, bad guy behind the board, not without a good ear, and he's mixing things bad. He has bass too loud, drums too low. All that's bad engineering. But the quality of your microphones.
I was about to say equipment and all of it.
Yeah, all the equipment. The equipment matters.
Right. Headphones.
Your recording device.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean not just the
Right.
microphone, but back in the day, people recorded on that old thick tape. Then they were moved over to the ADATs, and if you're using low quality stuff, like certain tapes sounded better than others. Like you actually were literally using tape. So all that stuff matters, and so now that's our explanation of what engineering is. So when people say, "Hey man, this song's engineered poorly," now you know what's behind engineering. And some people are great at it, and some people are not. And I've been in the studio with R&B engineers.
Yes.
And they're not good. They weren't good
Hip hop.
at hip hop.
And vice versa. Right. I've seen it both. Yeah. Seen it both ways myself.
Like, coming from a hip hop background, I've been in the studio with an engineer that had years in the game doing R&B.
Right.
And he was making me sick, because I don't want it to sound like an R&B song.
Right.
And even though it's a hip hop beat with a dude rapping, the engineer can, if he's used to having an R&B before hip hop influenced everything, the drums weren't the forefront of the music. So R&B engineer is gonna pull the drums back and have everything just didn't sound right. You know what I mean? It sounded soft.
A soft filter on it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So those are the things that an engineer does. And back to some poor engineering examples from back in the day. Skinny Boys. Skinny Boys was a group that beatboxed.
Okay.
But so were the Fat Boys.
You couldn't tell.
If you get a chance,
Yes.
listen to the Skinny Boys when Jockbox is beatboxing, and listen to the Human Beatbox
Right.
on the Fat Boys album. That's quality engineering
Because it sounded
on the beatbox.
it sounded like a machine is doing it.
When he,
Yes.
it sounded way different than when your boy from the Skinny Boys is doing it.
Right.
Fat Boys had quality engineering.
Absolutely.
And who did most of their production? Curtis Blow, the same guy who also had some of the best engineering in the early days. So he was around, and Dr. Dre. When Egyptian Lover was out there, his stuff was engineered nicely back in the day, and Dr. Dre was always there. So even if he didn't engineer the early stuff, he was around quality engineers.
Yes.
And he learned. When you heard another great engineered album, Chronic 2001.
What? Crack.
Great engineering though. Like imagine if those beats had just been made on Beat Machine and you recorded in the closet. Would it have hit the same?
No.
No, it had the polish.
Yep.
It was polished. It sounded
California.
California The home of great engineering.
Nas' first album, Illmatic.
I thought that it did have some poor engineering.
Oh God!
But I don't think it fell that far below standard for New York at the time.
Oh, gritty.
You know,
Gritty. It was the sound of the time.
It was the sound of the time. And you think about it, if you take that album and put it next to Wu-Tang. I like, you know, not trying to trash Wu-Tang, but that's the lowest part of the totem pole at that time.
It was.
So Nas fell between that and, you know, by the time Biggie dropped One More Chance, like that sounded like something else. That is like, whoa, the engineering on this, they ain't got the engineering together.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But everything, you know, it took a while with Biggie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it took a while with Bad Boy, but once they got it,
they got it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that Bad Boy was missing in the beginning.
In the beginning, it was the engineering.
But since we talked about NWA and Dr. Dre, Dr. Dre is the best / producer / engineer that we have seen thus far.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah.
Like,
and I would say Marley Marl, Jermaine Dupri, distant seconds. Jermaine Dupri his sound is always pretty good.
Yeah, I mean I can't dispute that. Yeah, hell yeah. You know, I don't know if it's that Dre that we talking about those early days of Dre.
I mean, hey, but like Dr. Dre is so far ahead of everybody else, though. Like, you know, anybody who's second is a distant second.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but now we get into the 90s, though, and you know things had been at a certain standard for a while.
Yes. And
we hadn't heard anything less. Even the first Wu-Tang album, by the time Triumph came out and they dropped their second album, the engineering was way better. And then by the time you get to Ghostface, Supreme Clientele, you're like, yo, is this the same dudes? The engineering on Ghostface,
but they didn't do a lot on Supreme Clientele.
Well, okay, but it's out of the camp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a noticeable, huge difference in the way that Ghostface album sounded compared to the way the first Wu-Tang album sounded.
Is a big difference between the Purple Tape and the first Wu-Tang album.
The Purple Tape, was that Nas?
Raekwon.
Raekwon made the Purple Tape? I thought that was Nas had the Purple Tape. Oh, no, he had the Lost Tapes.
Yeah, Lost Tape. Raekwon tape was actually purple. It was actually purple.
I'm tripping.
Yeah.
And I thought Raekwon's first album was engineered much better than the Wu-Tang first album.
Yes, the Purple Tape.
Absolutely. Yeah, you talking about Only Built for Cuban Links.
Yeah, I called it the Purple
that's why
tape.
You call it the Purple Tape. I was going to say, what is the Purple Tape? I didn't have it on tape. I had the wax, and the wax was black. You know what I'm saying? But you hear people coming along in their engineering, you hear it getting better. Right. And by the time we got to about 97, 98, we were used to a certain standard.
Another album that would have been greater and stood the test of time from the camp. I'm sorry, Wu-Tang. The Genius album.
That I don't think that was engineered as good as the rest of them.
That first
could have been better engineering. Yeah.
Man, listen, man.
Could have been better engineering.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, it needed better engineering.
If I was him, I would redo that album, man.
Right.
It still sound the same.
A re-release.
Yes.
Yeah, with new mastering and engineering. And people do it all the time. Like songs are re-released.
Right. And you won't even know it.
Oh, you can tell the difference.
Kanye do it all the time.
You know, this brings me to where I was going. Mm-hmm. When we had set a standard, even that Genius album is, you know, it wasn't the best engineering in the world, but the standard was higher then, so it wasn't anywhere near terrible. Okay. You know, it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't
what it needed.
It wasn't, it wasn't top of the line, but it wasn't the bottom either.
No, it wasn't. No.
But then Master P came along and said, man.
All that. I don't care.
He's like, oh, there's a standing. Hold my beer, Wody. And I'm trying to tell you, we went right back.
Yeah.
I'm talking about we took a step back to the Jungle Brothers.
Man,
it was Jungle Brothers level engineering, and I'm just on the Jungle Brothers first album because when they dropped the second album,
it was much.
The engineering was fine.
Yes,
it was that first album, and when Master P, oh my goodness,
and he had access to the West Coast,
and it wasn't just him. It was all them songs they put out. They were all.
Master P was the first Tyler Perry.
Exactly. Volume.
Tyler Perry learned from
quantity over quality. He's like, man, I don't care. Look,
put it out.
I can see them right now. When how you do that? How you do that? There, that was one of the most poorly engineered songs ever made.
Right.
In hip hop. Now I can imagine this going on in the studio.
It might have
Yo, Wody, I just finished this back in one hit. I got to send it off to be mastered and get engineered right. Master P heard it. He said, how you do that there? New Orleans said, hey, man, put it out right now, just like this. He's like, nah. Young Bleed was probably like, nah, man, I got to do this to it. I got to do that to it because Young Bleed was a producer.
Right.
And his album was one of the better albums to come out in the whole run. So I know
he understood.
I know that his production and his engineering was pretty decent. Mm-hmm. So I know that couldn't have been his decision to put out How You Do That there, sounding like it sounded. Like that song is so hard to play.
Yeah,
like even Snoop Dogg when he was on there.
Oh God!
Down for My Niggas.
Yeah,
great song.
Great song.
One of the best songs ever.
Hit.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not engineered that well.
And Snoop knew better.
You know what I'm saying?
He came from better.
He came from better. But he went to the microwave.
He had to.
He been cooking stuff up, spending the whole hour cooking, letting it sit and set, and then he went to the microwave, yo.
Good God,
he's like, man, I'm tired of waiting to eat.
Right.
And Master P went back and reset the bar, and the bar was low.
Yes. That makes me think of Timbaland and Magoo.
Timbaland had decent engineering. It wasn't Dr. Dre level.
No, I think Timbaland and Magoo's projects were not engineered by the same person.
You mean the one they did together and then all the Timbaland's other stuff? Well, when Timbaland, there's certain things that Timbaland would do, and you felt like he was working with different engineers at different times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like the stuff with Aaliyah was immaculate.
They had that producer was Jimmy Douglas.
You mean the engineer?
Yeah, the engineer
for Aaliyah stuff.
Yeah, he's been working with Timbaland on stuff throughout Timbaland's career.
Right. You could a beat like 1 in a Million. That beat doesn't work if the engineer is not right.
Oh, hell no.
So that's all I can say is the engineer deserves 30% of the credit for being able to get that sound off.
Yes.
That was a dramatic.
Making up words.
That was a dramatic departure from the lane and the direction that everything else was in during that time period. Mm-hmm. And to do something like that, there has to be something familiar. And what was familiar and comfortable was the engineering. It just sounded good. Even the crickets.
Yeah.
And you can hear him in the back. Timbaland used a lot of odd sounds like that. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't have a quality engineer, that can ruin the song.
Right.
So he had quality engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And it paid off.
Yes.
Right. It paid off. Paid off big time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can't tell a song was poorly engineered until years later.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I go back and listen to Straight Outta Compton.
Mm-hmm.
It still sounds incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that sound, I can't remember the Kendrick Lamar track, but Kendrick Lamar got a track with that sound. And it almost make you feel like you running through the alley in Compton or something. That's what I think of, like that sound. I don't know how to describe
Kendrick
it.
Lamar's projects are engineered pretty good.
Hell yes.
You know?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me see. We already been on Master P. I'm not even gonna stay on him long. Here's one. The early days of 3 6 Mafia. It wasn't engineered that well.
Right.
But by around the time of Who Run It dropped,
when they switched
some light bulb,
you
know, something happened.
Right.
And I think they set a new standard for engineering Southern hip hop.
Right. Right.
You know, and I would say that UGK's music also was well engineered.
Right.
And they set the bar really high. And whoever's doing this stuff down there, Rick Ross, all of them, the engineering is
master,
insane.
Yes, sir.
You know, this is music that just sounds so good.
Yeah, man.
You know, and it matters, man. You know what I'm saying? It really, really, really matters. Like all of Outkast stuff wasn't engineered to perfection.
I was about to say that, yes, because their first album was,
you know, and it was great. Like they were all good. It's all, and like I said, Outkast is by no means the bottom of the barrel engineering.
No.
But I'm just saying it wasn't, you know, it wasn't the top tier either. But eventually, I think they did find it.
Yes.
And it was after the AT-Aliens project. Before that, it sounded like one thing.
Right.
After AT-Aliens,
different.
Sounded like something else to me. You know, and it's the same producers, same rappers.
It was a bigger check involved by that time.
Yeah.
So the label put a little bit more into making sure that quality was there.
Right.
Yeah, but the first, you know, before that, they might have had a deal, but they weren't serious about them.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
And it matters in R&B too. It matters more in R&B, but you're less likely to hear poor engineering on an R&B song on the radio back in the day. But I'm gonna tell you one that always stood out to me: "Freak Like Me" by Dina Howard. Great engineering on that song.
Yeah.
Great engineering.
The camp around her was dope.
I don't even know who was around her helping, you know, making it happen. But that song, you know, especially back in the day, you get a record on wax, you put the needle on it. You know, every record sounded a little bit different.
Right.
But that song was incredible. The sound of that song was incredible. Everything, the levels, everything was just right.
That's
her
California
vocals,
too, right?
That's California.
No.
That California soul. Shout out Marlena Shaw, just passed away. But yeah, that's another great engineered song. But today, after that little SoundCloud era, now the SoundCloud era took the engineering standards back down again. Like oh man, Magnolia by Playboi Carti. And I'm like, yo, did they even?
Yeah, nothing. Just put it out, man.
Yeah,
it sounds good to me.
XXX and Tentacion that and then the beat I was like, what is going on? I thought maybe I was hearing a rough version and they weren't gonna put it out like that.
Yeah, they
put it out like that with distorted levels.
Right.
So there was absolutely no oversight for a period of time during the SoundCloud era in the early 2010s or that little period of time. Like, engineering just went right out the window. It was terrible for a while. But at some point, they dropped Swag Surfing. I was like, hey, that song sounds incredible.
Yes.
And that's a hard song to engineer. It's a lot of stuff going on in that song.
Right.
The truth, like how you know you got quality engineering when it's a whole bunch of stuff going on and it doesn't sound like it's like each part is crowding the other part. It just all meshes together. Like that's what Dre was so good at. Taking so many samples and sounds. Timberland, so many samples and sounds, but it sounds like one piece.
Right.
When it's bad engineering, is
the engineer of Jay-Z 99 Problems.
Oh, that's Rick. Rick Rubin had a hand in that. So but you go back to the Beastie Boys' first album, it sounded incredible.
Yes.
The engineering on that was
crazy,
excellent. But then the second album, engineering wasn't so good.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Like Paul's Boutique, the engineer on Paul's Boutique is nothing like License to Ill.
They went back home.
I don't know. Paul's Boutique sounded like an experiment. Yeah. And to this day, nobody plays anything off Paul's Boutique.
Nothing. And
it was a dope album. There's plenty of good stuff on there, but it was, it's hard to listen to when you used to hearing quality, high quality.
Right. And I think since you said that, it made me think about, because we always trying to give somebody some jewels, the local artist who keeps putting out music, and you always got to ask people, did they go listen to it? It's probably a dead giveaway.
Well, and that gets us to this problem. That's why local artists have such a hard time, because you want your music played beside joints that sound like $1 million. $5 and $1 million don't mix.
Absolutely.
And the engineering isn't there.
Man, I can't listen to it.
Stands out.
Yeah.
Like I said, that like to this day, I'm sitting here talking about how good Swag Surfing sounds.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? It just sounds so good. Those horns. Right. It sounds alive. And then the bass drops, and that's some heavy bass.
Right.
And it don't blow your speakers when it drops. It's just, it's like, how did they pull that much bass out of this song?
Right.
And it don't tear nothing up or don't sound distorted. It was great, man. Great engineering on that song, man.
Right.
It's hard to get that done.
It was dope.
Now, there's also a chance that just, could be the files I got in my computer just sound good. Somebody might be like, let me go check this song out. And then they cut it up loud and the bass drop and everything explodes.
But even if you're listening to it on YouTube, you can tell what's been engineered properly or who invested in that part of it.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Like if you're going to be independent and you expect to get anywhere, you got to spend on the engineering. And I think that's the problem with Southern Soul.
Yeah, you always bash.
Look how I'm just keeping it a buck.
Yeah.
If the music was engineered, okay, let's take Mark Morrison, Return of the Mac.
Okay.
One of the greatest engineered songs ever. It just everything about it sounds crisp and clean and sharp.
Where's he from?
England.
Right.
But essentially, it's kind of a Southern Soul song. You know what I'm saying? It's a Return of the Mac. I mean, it fits the lane.
Yeah.
But if you put that song up against other music in the genre, play them side by side, it's one of the few that, you could tell the ones that sound like they got some money into them.
Right.
And some of the stuff don't. So, like I said, I'm not digging on, like, I'm not saying Southern Soul is bad music. I'm saying it's poorly engineered.
You said that. But
I said it's poorly engineered.
Southern Soul is that turn that shit up music anyway. It's that music, Southern Soul, I think in its essence, is not engineered and mastered.
Well, some of it is.
I know, but that's the commercial version.
When you get those, like you listen to that Like King George is one of the big Southern soul artists.
Commercial.
Now. You listen, hey, but that's the thing.
Yeah,
he wasn't commercial when he recorded that song. Like he didn't go like that. These dudes they don't come out.
King George
commercial.
Yeah, well, when I say commercial,
maybe he's commercial because it sounds so good.
Yeah, that too. And at the same time, like just because we hadn't heard of King George doesn't mean he hadn't been around the block.
But I mean, I feel you there.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because the quote unquote industry has not welcomed Southern Soul yet. Southern Soul is still backyard type stuff. Of course, they have concerts and shows and stuff. Mm-hmm. But like we haven't seen a Southern Soul show at PNC. But
you won't. We're talking about poor engineering though, and I do believe that the Southern Soul up there engineering, they got multiple artists. Because sometimes I think the only thing that makes it a Southern Soul song is the poor engineering.
Oh God!
Because I mean, like honestly, if it don't sound, if the engineering sounds just as good as everything else, then it's gonna get called R&B, and it's just gonna be on the radio with everybody else that's singing R&B. You feel me?
Yes. Yeah.
And even though there is a sound, that sound can easily translate. All they gotta do is up the engineering, and Southern Soul is in the conversation.
You mean under the rim of R&B, or
it would be a sub genre, but some songs in Southern Soul could easily just cross over into normal R&B, but there's still that element of when you listen to it, it sounds like it was local, sound like it was just done and thrown out there. So, I mean, no, straight up.
I hope Southern Soul stays where it is, then, because I don't want to see it wrapped up from the R&B umbrella into the industry.
You don't want to see King George with the devil in his video. Hell King George and Sexy Red.
Hell no. Hell no.
But yeah, but that's prime example of where engineering can take you. I think some Southern Soul artists are a good engineer away from being legitimate R&B artists.
Damn. I was thinking more like black folks country music.
Yeah, there's some of it does fall in that lane, but you got some Zydeco in there. There's a lot of genres within the Southern Soul umbrella. Yeah. It's not all just the same, but the venues they play in are all the same. But like I said, Zydeco's different than traditional Southern Soul. But they're gonna play in the same places,
right? I'm glad you said under the umbrella of Southern Soul.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff inside of there. Like they got some slow jams in there. You got up tempo stuff. You got hip hop sound in Southern Soul. Right. Like because you'd be surprised. You get down to Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia,
North Carolina now,
North Carolina too. You have artists that
have flipped.
Yeah, but you have young people taking part in this. But I especially throw out Louisiana and Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas. Young people participate in a different clip than here where it's more of an adult. Like, I don't mean young adult. When I think Southern Soul around here, I think 40s and 50s, maybe 30s. And those 30s are the ones that they ain't hanging out with young folks no more, listening to all that hippity hoppity.
You already know what the crowd gonna look like.
Right, you know what the crowd gonna look like, but you'll catch some young cats down there in Louisiana vibing to this stuff. And there is some country sounding stuff in there too. Right. But when the engineering is good, some of those songs go a long way. The dude named J. Paul Jr. down there, I thought he had pretty decent engineering. He kind of on the Zydeco tip. But yeah, engineering, man. Engineering can stifle a whole genre.
Absolutely. And like I said, and maybe, like you said, that might answer the question about North Carolina artists.
I think that answers the question about the early days of hip-hop, too. Hip-hop wasn't a staple on the radio. We had mix shows,
right?
But it wasn't a staple on radio till post MC Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And MC Hammer came out with quality engineering. Like, his stuff was engineered to the standards of everything else that was on the radio. But before that, hip hop stood out as, the engineering didn't sound up to par with everything else.
Well, what do you think about Tone Loc's first album?
It had some hits and some misses. But for the most part, it was engineered pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought about him because you mentioned MC Hammer. Or even like Coolio.
Tone Loc and Young MC were on the same label.
Right.
And golly, who else? Somebody. But all those artists, I thought they had pretty good engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious Vinyl.
And talking about engineers and
those songs went mainstream early.
Right.
They were some of the first rap records that play everywhere on the radio during the day.
Since you always show your sexism, you don't never give women their proper credit. I just think it's important to mention a female engineer
female engineer. I don't know none of these engineers.
Susan Rogers, who engineered Prince's
School me, brother.
Prince. Yeah, from Purple Rain.
She engineered Purple Rain?
Yes. That through his career, like most of his hits came from Susan Rogers.
Purple Rain was see, I thought Prince did everything.
Including engineering, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's take Purple Rain for example. Mm-hmm. He played the drums, he played the bass guitar, he played the lead guitar, he played the piano, and then he sang them joints.
And he sang.
The band, the Revolution, that was his band to play the songs because he can't be on stage playing everything. But when he went and recorded this stuff,
man,
played everything.
Yes.
So, you're doing that much, I'll just assume he went back there and mixed it down and engineered it too.
Right. But Susan Rogers, man, gotta give a shout out.
But I can't take away or give any credit to any engineers because I don't know these people's names, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because not having physical music out there anymore. You don't know who engineers are.
Because you got to dig for the credits now.
Right.
Why?
And it used to be a given. You would know who wrote the song, who produced it, who engineered it, who mixed it, who mastered it, and even what studio it was recorded in.
Yes.
All of that stuff, like without having physical copies of these records anymore and not seeing those credits, like people are losing. And like that's a whole, like, best believe that if you went back and listened to a song that was engineered, that had great engineering, you look at the credits, you want to work with that engineer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That was advertisement.
Yes.
And it's gone now.
Yep. And I think that's in part because of like where we are now.
Well, that's why producers started tagging their stuff. Mike Will made it.
Right. So you'll know.
Right.
And because it's such a push on the artist and the persona or the, what's the word I'm looking for? The image of the artist. That's what's being pushed so hard. We don't need the rest of this stuff.
Right. And you need to know who these people are so that they can work.
Right.
And get more work and get paid. Like, you start off at one rate, then you become in high demand.
Right. Right.
And some of these engineers that are out here doing great work, they need to be credited.
And they underpaid. They
wouldn't be underpaid
if they were credited.
Right. If you could easily just, look up who was an engineer on Swag Surfing or and people in the industry know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They know who to go to.
So
I can imagine. But as a consumer, you want to know too, because if you decide to get in the game, maybe you save your money. You record your project and save your money for some of that good engineering that you've heard. Mm-hmm. And you need to know who to go to. So the liner notes and credits are important, man.
Right.
We have gone through phases of engineering, even on this podcast.
Yes, sir.
We've been through different microphones, different recording devices.
Right.
And, we're looking for a standard of quality.
Absolutely. And you listen to season 1 of the Capital City podcast. Like
right.
I was
engineering
telling you,
wasn't the same.
Man, it was some
Yeah,
I'm glad we fired him.
DL has always said season 1 was, he didn't like the engineering. But that's, it's real. So, hey, if you're trying to get in the game and you don't want to sound local.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, end of the story. Yeah, the end of the story is bad engineering just makes you sound local.
Yeah. But and the crazy part, because good engineering makes the local sound like you don't know where it's from.
You don't know where it's from.
Yeah.
That's how I know a record is local.
Yes.
Poor engineering.
Like, when was the last time you got in the car and adjusted the bass and the treble?
Nah.
Or the mids?
Well, if anything, I have had times so I want to cut it up, make it louder. The bass.
The bass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you don't have to adjust it.
But here's one thing that radio does too. Radio hides a lot of that because there's so much processing on that signal.
Yeah.
That, I used to take a lot of poorly engineered songs and I would play them on the radio back in the day.
Sound straight.
And when you go out and listen in the car, radio does a part of the job for you.
Right.
Unless it's absolutely awful, the radio will fix a lot of that. It's going to mask poor engineering 50% of the time.
Right.
But yeah, man, spend that money.
Yeah.
Because you're only going to go so far with bad engineering, especially if you're independent.
You ain't going nowhere. Stop saying that.
No, you can go somewhere.
Where?
Go to the liquor house with it.
There you go. Hey, okay, last thing about that Wu-Tang, the first Wu album. Mm-hmm. Didn't that poor engineering make the song that much more? That it was more of a mood.
It felt authentic and real.
Yes.
But when you heard it also though, but that was part of the draw for them back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It was gritty,
right,
and poorly engineered,
mm-hmm.
And that's what they were. They were gritty,
right.
Now they almost look dirty.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
And I think that their sound matched their image,
right.
But you can't take that sound and give it to somebody and put makeup on them. If it's a girl,
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, but we're in a good place right now, and I hope everything stays at the standard that it's at. But I'm trying to figure out, how do you get that standard? Like, it must be something in these computer programs now that have bypassed the need for a good engineer, because I'm hearing stuff that people record right home.
Right.
And it sounds way better than it used to when people would record at their house.
It's still not standard though.
Yeah, it's not. It's not there, but it's not. It's not
even close to standard.
It ain't Master P anymore though. Like, I don't even think that can happen now.
I've heard a couple.
You've heard some?
Yeah, but that was the person who was just recording them, and they just bounced the track out.
I want to give a shout out to. I always thought your boy Manifest down there had some great engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, at least on what I've heard, I thought his engineering sound pretty tight down there.
Okay.
A local, I don't want to use the word local for any of our producers, but for somebody around here,
mm-hmm.
I thought he was able to get some good sound.
Yeah. There's a few of them though that take it. I'm not gonna say more serious, but you could tell that's a focus of theirs now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And all those other people we talked to that blew up out of town, they're working in bigger studios in bigger cities.
Absolutely.
Access to more people.
Right. Like Ski Beats did Jay-Z's first album.
Did a lot, right. And that wasn't a poorly engineered album.
No, that's what I was gonna say. I wouldn't know who engineered it.
And I thought the blueprint, by the time they got to the blueprint, it was just they were on autopilot. The engineering was
that Young Guru who did?
Yeah, it's never just one person. Like, even with the first album, Ski wasn't the only person to produce on there.
Well, I mean, as far as the engineering,
I don't know who engineered, but for the most part, engineering was good.
Mm-hmm.
Jay-Z has he's been the product of some pretty good engineering. And today, I haven't heard anything that stands out as terrible engineering recently. and nothing that's made it mainstream.
Right. I can't think of anything right now myself.
I think, and you hear progression too. Like you listen to Future's latest album, engineering is remarkable.
Yeah, that's what they say. I haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But so is Nas's new album. You know,
yeah,
the engineering is good. I think we're just in a place now where it's easier to get a quality sound than it used to be because everything is packaged to be done anywhere.
Right.
And you're not forced to go to the best engineer. Like you could probably do a YouTube tutorial. Yeah. Like there's probably a tutorial on YouTube to teach you how to get quality sound.
Oh, absolutely. So with the cheapest equipment.
With some cheap equipment, right.
Yeah, yeah. And that's something else that's stopping or going to continue to stop engineers getting their just due.
Oh, right. Well, that's the computer has eliminated a lot of jobs. That's what it does.
Yeah.
You know, before you know it, you have AI DJs. You just put a playlist in and then
they already there.
Yeah, now you just say, I want this song, this song, this song, this song, this song. And then you don't even need a DJ. The computer will probably mix them and everything.
Mm-hmm. You put it in the mood and the genre of music.
Right.
And it'll
already give you a playlist, but I'm talking about actual mix the songs. It'll probably actually mix the songs one day.
Mm-hmm. Everything's done on the computer anyway.
Right. Now, I can see that coming.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it might be a good time to start thinking about what I'm going to do when that happens.
Go get some work. Hey, damn, all those changes, man.
You know what I'm saying? So, hey, that's tonight's show. We was talking about engineering, and now go back and listen to some of those joints we were talking about. Listen to
Falling Off.
No, I'm talking about some of the songs that we talked about tonight.
About the podcast.
Yeah. You can always check the podcast out too, but listen to some of the songs that we talked about tonight.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe in your headphones or something. And I would say, not in your headphones. Headphones mask poor engineering a lot of times too.
Right.
You need to listen to them
on
some speakers.
Quality speakers.
Some speakers that you listen to a lot.
Listen to that Junior Mafia album and then listen to Biggie album.
Junior Mafia's album was poorly engineered.
What?
Yes, it was.
What?
Yes, it was.
Terrible.
Yes, it was.
Terrible.
Yes,
Lil Kim's first album was poorly engineered.
Yes, it was.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah. Except for the joint Fanatic did.
Right. Except that one.
That was Crush on You.
Yeah.
Was engineered pretty good.
Perfectly.
Right.
Yeah. That was a dope. That was one of the dopest tracks on the album.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
If not the dopest.
Fuji's The Score. Another one of the best engineered albums I've ever heard. You know, why I'm sitting here thinking, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Crisp.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Everything about it.
That Roots album with I Shall Proceed and Continue. That album for a band, a hip hop band,
right?
Playing live drums and all that. Like I've heard other people try it. It hadn't been done as well,
right,
as that Roots album sounded. And not all the Roots projects sounded that good. To me, that album stood out.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but no, I can't think of anything that's poorly engineered that's can't come out in recent years.
Nah, the standards, you know.
Yeah. Even the
in a different place.
Garbage.
Yeah, the song can be terrible, but the engineering ain't.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. Good stopping point.
Yeah. Yeah. Even Ski Yee, Sexy Red, the song's engineered well. Pound Town, not so much. But Pound Town, early.
Yeah.
Ski Yee got that that Hollywood treatment on it.
Right.
That joint sounds good.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a good sounding record.
Any last words to the local artists? And the importance of
make sure your stuff is engineered properly and you won't be questioned so much about, you know.
And shout out to our new engineer, because I think that's when I realized that we had something, when I had to stop I stopped asking people, did they listen to the pod? And now they're telling me, they're giving me feedback on the pod. Like I told you, it's always like humbling for me if I can talk to someone 3 to 5 times a week for a period of time, and then they still take the time to go listen to the pod. I'm like, damn.
Hey, well, that's what's up.
Yes, sir.
That's what's up. Local artists, get your stuff together.
Yeah.
Or stay in the liquor house. We out. No, I'm sorry, Southern Soul. I love y'all.
That's what you say, man.
Yeah, it's Capital City Podcast. I'm your host, Capital J, alongside my main man,
DL Glass.
and we got our engineering up.